That night they slept in a haystack. So grateful.
No, keep it like that.
Trying. So grateful for open air. Even the field mice and the ticks were welcome by the next day was pleasant but less exciting. They bathed in a curve of the Susquehanna. No, they bathed in a curve of the Susquehanna and then wandered in a southerly direction, keeping the fields, woods, stream beds, and little used paths. Headed, they thought, for Virginia. Where Macon believed they had people. On the third day, they woke to find a man that looked just like their father, sitting on a stump not 50 yards away. He was not looking at them. He was just sitting there. They would have called out to him or run toward him. Except he was staring right past them with such distance in his eyes. He frightened them. So they ran away. All day long at various intervals they saw him, staring down into the duck ponds, framed by the wire sycamore tree, shading his eyes from the sun as he peered over a rock at the wide valley floor beneath him. Each time they saw him, they backed off and went in the opposite direction. Now the land itself, I don't want him to think that I'm making fun of this. I'm not trying to go slower, but now the land itself, it's only when they knew and knew intimately began to terrify them. The sun was blazing down, the air was sweet, but every leaf that the wind lifted, every rustle of a peasant hand in a clump of ryegrass sent needles of fear throughout their veins. The cardinals, the gray squirrels. Exact, that's good.
Having food all day.
That's good. It's better than being done right now. Sent needles of fear throughout their veins. Okay. All the affectionate things that have peopled their lives ever since they were born became ominous signs of a presence that was searching for them, following them. Even the rivers badly sound like the call of a liquid throat waiting. Just waiting for them. That was in the daylight. How much more terrible was the night. Just before dark, when the sun had left them alone, and they were coming out of some woods looking around for the crest of the hill where they could see, perhaps, a farm, an abandoned shed, any place where they could spend the night, they saw a cave, and at its mouth stood their father. This time he motioned for them to follow him. Faced with the choice of limitless nighttime woods and a man who looked like their father, they chose the latter. After all, it was their father. He wouldn't hurt them. Slowly they approached the mouth of the cave. Following their father's beckoning hand and his occasional backward glance, they looked into the cave and saw nothing but a great mountain of darkness. Their father had disappeared. They stayed near the lip, they thought. It was as good as a place as any to spend the night. Perhaps he was simply looking out for them, showing them what to do and where to go. They made themselves as comfortable as they could on a rock of formation that jutted out like a shelf. From a hip-high mass of stone, there was nothing behind them they could see, and only discerning if that's disturbing them. There was nothing to disturb things out there. Toward morning, Megan went from a light and fitful sleep with a terrific urge to relieve his bowels. Oh my god, so immature, you. The consequence of a 3-day diet of wild fruit was that, like his sister, he climbed off the shelf, and shy of squatting on the crown of the hill in new sun, he walked a little further back in the cave. When he was finished, the darkness had disintegrated somewhat, and he saw some 50 feet from him a man stirring in his sleep. Megan tried to button his pants and get away without waking him, but the leaves and twigs crunched under his feet pulled the man all the way out of his sleep. He raised his head, turned over, and smiled. Megan saw that he was very old, very white, and his smile was awful. Megan stood back, one hand outstretched behind him, thinking all the while of how his father's body had twitched and danced for whole minutes in the dirt. He touched the cave's wall, and a piece of it gave away in his hand. Closing his fingers around it, he threw it at the grinning man's head, hitting him just above the eye. Blood smeared and knocked the smile off the pale man's face. It did not stop the man from coming and coming all the time, wiping blood from his face and smearing it on his shirts.
Megan got hold of another rock, but missed that time. The man kept coming. The scream that boomed down the cave tunnel and woke the bats came just when Megan thought he had taken his last living breath. The bleeding man turned towards the direction of the scream and looked at the colored girl long enough for Megan to pull out his knife and bring it down to the old man's back. He crouched forward, then turned his head to look up at them. His mouth moved, and he mumbled something that sounded like, "What for?" Megan stabbed him again and again until he stopped moving his mouth, stopped trying to talk, and stopped jumping and twitching on the ground. Panting with exertion of slashing through an old man's rib cage, Megan ran back to get the blanket the man had been sleeping on. He wanted the dead man to disappear, to be covered, hidden, to be gone. When he snatched the blanket, a large tarpaulin came with it, and he saw 3 boards positioned across what looked like a shallow pit. He paused and then kicked the boards aside. Underneath were little gray bags, their necks tied with wire, arranged like nest eggs. Megan picked up one of them and was amazed by its weight. "Pilot," he said, "Pilot." But she was growing roots where she stood and staring over the mouth of the dead man. Megan had to pull her by the arm over to the hole where the bags lay. After some difficulty with the wire, he ended up having to use his teeth. He got one open and shook the gold nuggets it held out into the leaves and twigs that lay on the floor to the cave. "Gold," he whispered, and immediately, like a burglar on his first job, stood up to peep. Like life, safety, and luxury fanned out before him like the trail spread of a peacock, and he stood there, trying to distinguish each delicious letter. He saw the dusty boots of his father standing just on the other side of the shallow pit. "It is, Papa," said Pilot, and as if the answer to her recognition, he took a deep breath, rolled his eyes back, and whispered, "Sing, sing," in a hollow voice before he melted away. Pilot darted around the cave, calling him, looking for him, while making Pilot his socks pulled into the tarpaulin. "Let's go, Pilot. Let's get out of here." "We can't take that." She pointed a finger at his bundle. "What?" "Not take it. You lost your mind? That's stealing. We killed a man. They'll be after us, all over. If we take his money, then they'll think that's what we did. Then they'll think that's why we did it. We got to leave it here, Megan. We can't get caught with no bags of money. This ain't money, it's gold. It'll keep us for life, Pilot. We can't get us another farm. We can leave it. We can leave it. Let them find it where it was." Then he began to shout, "Papa, Papa." Megan slapped her, and the little brass box dangled on her ear. She cupped it in her hand for a moment and leaped on her brother like an antelope. They fought right there in front of the dead man's staring eyes. Pilot was almost as strong as Megan, but no real match for him, and he probably would not have beaten her unconscious if she had not got his knife, not yet dry from old man's blood, and held it ready for his heart. Megan stood very still and watched her eyes. He began calling her ugly names, but she didn't answer. He backed out of the cave and walked a little distance away. All day he waited for her to come out. All day she stayed there. When night came, he just sat on the foot of a tree, unafraid of all the night things that had terrified him before, eyes wide open, waiting for her to stick her woolly head out of the cave. Then there was no sound from her direction, and he waited the whole night. At dawn, he crept forward a foot at a time, hoping he would catch her asleep. Just then, he heard some dogs, and new hunters were walking nearby. He ran as fast as he could through the woods until he couldn't hear the dogs anymore. Another day and night until he spent trying to work his way back to the cave and avoid the hunters if they were still about. Finally, he got there, 3 days and 2 nights later. Instead, the cave the dead man was still looking placidly up at him, but the tarpaulin and the gold were gone.
The Socrates went away, so did the children and the dogs. Only the pigeons, the drunks, and the trees were left in the little park. Milkman had eaten almost none of his barbecue. He was watching his father's face, shining with perspiration and the emotions of memory. She took it, Macon. After all that, she took the gold. How do you know? You didn't see her take it, said the milkman. The tarpaulin was green, making that rubbed his hands together. Pilot came to the city in 1930. 2 years later, they killed back all the gold. If Richter spent it all the 20 or so years I had seen her, and she was looking like poor trash when she got here. It was natural for me to believe she got rid of it all. And you can tell me she got a green sack full of something and enough to give you a hit you over the head when you bumped into it. That's the gold way, that's it. He turned his son full face and licked his lips. Mason, get it, and you can have half of it. Go wherever you want. Get it for both of us. Please get it, son. Get the gold.